and in the next few minutes. So
sure, then let me go ahead and make you the star. Or do you want me to introduce you first? I'll introduce you first. How about that?
Yeah.
Sounds good. So I think we're going to go ahead and start. Well, if there's some people that are maybe coming in later on. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlie. I'm sure a lot of you know me. And for those who don't know me, I'm a coordinator here at the New York Peace Institute in our restorative justice program, which we do mediation, we do conflict coaching, and a variety of other things. And I have the honor of introducing you to today's program. So welcome to Finding Peace Within and Between Meditation and Mediation with Simon Des-Etages. This is the first virtual event in New York Peace Institute's annual PeaceRaiser for this year. And it's a special year because it's our 10th anniversary. NYPI provides New Yorkers with conflict resolution services, including free mediation. Simon is a member of NYPI's board of directors and is combining his understanding of mediation and conflict resolution with his experience in mindfulness to explore the intersections between the two. We hope that you enjoy the discussion and the accompanying meditation. There will be some time to ask questions, and we can also provide more information about New York Peace Institute for those interested in learning about us. And you can also put questions in the chat, and I can keep track of them. That way I can just ask them in bulk. So let's not keep you waiting. I'll now pass my mic on to Simon and make him the star of the show.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks very much, and welcome and good afternoon to our friends of New York Peace Institute. Today we're going to have a discussion about parallels and synergies between mediation and meditation, and I'm going to finish with a guided meditation practice that I hope will help illustrate some of what we've been speaking about during the course of this hour. First, however, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit of background. So I'm from England, as you may be able to tell from my accent, and I'm an attorney by profession. I moved to New York from the UK in 1999 with the brokerage firm Merrill Lynch, and now work for HSBC based in New York. I'm currently transitioning into a new role and will be moving to London in July for a few years, returning home, ironically, probably to the home that I grew up with my mother. And so I'm going to guess when I get back to the UK, I'm going to wake up one day and wonder if I ever left. But I'm looking forward to the opportunity. I joined the board of the New York Peace Institute about 3 years ago, and I trained in mediation with the Institute very soon after joining the board. If you haven't been through our training, I'd highly recommend it. It's excellent and provides you with a set of skills that you can apply in all aspects of your life, even if you never formally acted as a mediator. And I do know, my understanding is today we have a lot of New York Peace Institute mediators joining the call, and also other employees. So for those who haven't mediated, haven't been through training, are not mediators, I can highly recommend the training. I've been a mindfulness practitioner for about 20 years, on and off. I started my journey during a pretty painful divorce 21 years ago, actually. I was the instigator, and notwithstanding my efforts to end the marriage peacefully, I was hurting everyone, my former wife, my kids, my parents. It was suggested by a colleague that although I'm pretty cool and laid back, as you can tell, I might consider attending a course run by an organization called Landmark Education, called the Landmark Forum. You may have heard of it. It used to be called ESK in the 70s. As I didn't appear to have the tools to peacefully end my marriage, I decided that it may be a good idea to attend the course. And during the course, for the first time, I realized a few things. Firstly, how much fear ran my life. I had no idea until then how much fear ran my life. And secondly, how my tangible real life experiences reflected and were driven by things about myself I didn't know. And to explain that phrase, there are things I know. For example, my name is Simon Des-Etages. I live in New York. I'm an attorney, and so on. There are things I know I don't know. For example, I know I don't speak Russian. I know I don't play golf very well. And I know I don't know all of you, and so on. And then there are things I don't know, thoughts and fears about myself and the world buried deep inside and hidden away that drive so much of the dysfunction in my life in those days. Things that were, if not for the intervention of the Landmark Forum or some other intervention, would likely have to have continued for many years to have driven the dysfunction in my life. During the course, I understood that my life experience and my impact on those around me was driven by the meaning I gave to things. My life was a very subjective experience. And should I be able to identify more effectively things about myself I didn't know, I could be more conscious and powerful in navigating my life experience. And there's a quote from the psychoanalyst and philosopher Carl Jung that, in my view, exemplifies this reality. And Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll feel, and you'll call it fate." So until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll call it fate. Suffice to say that as a consequence of the landmark course, I was able to bring far more calm to my divorce, primarily by taking personal responsibility for my material contribution to the challenges that ultimately brought that to an end. And today, my former wife and I, her husband, my children and his children, get on like a house on fire. In my view, we are, in fact, in a sort of extended family, not a broken one. So knowing who I was and being much more familiar with the thoughts that were hidden inside me that were driving my life was real powerful healing magic. After Landmark, I studied and became a Reiki practitioner, developed a mindfulness practice and studied Transcendental Meditation, and embarked on a beautiful journey of deep self-discovery. And on the way to today, having fallen off the mindfulness wagon a few times and overindulged in food and alcohol and stress, I also became seriously ill. And so at that time, I developed an even deeper mindfulness practice, which eventually contributed to my healing. So, so mindfulness has been a major boon in my life, a real contributor to the balance that I experience in my life. I'm also a mindfulness champion with HSBC's Mindfulness Network. We have a network of about 2,500 mindfulness members. And we have, I don't know, about 50 or 60 mindfulness champions who take employees through mindfulness sessions and talk about stress and resilience, and have played a fantastic role during 2020 in this pandemic in keeping balance and helping people with their mental health. I've probably run sessions for hundreds of HSBC employees now, and I run sound healings and became a student of the esoteric. So a quick disclaimer, I've used mindfulness practices to develop diversity and inclusion programs based on the idea that greater mindfulness is a critical key to creating more inclusive environments, and will in fact be presenting to a bunch of lawyers in Chicago on Thursday on the use of mindfulness as a D&I tool. My foray into mindfulness and mediation is quite recent, but I can't tell you that it's necessarily that difficult to actually develop this talk. In fact, the challenge I've had in developing this talk is that the parallels between mindfulness and mediation have just kept flowing in. And so this talk, to some extent, is an experiment. And so I'd ask for your understanding and indulgence, your patience, openness, and at some point, hopefully, some feedback. And finally, I'm a father of two beautiful girls, Daniel and Katja, a grandfather of a beautiful 5-year-old granddaughter. I know it's hard to believe when you look at me, I look so young and fresh, but that's a benefit of mindfulness. And a gestating grandchild whose gender I don't know yet. So my daughter is pregnant for their second child. I love to paint, to record music, play a bunch of musical instruments. I like to write poetry and prose, to travel and keep fit. I also have a plant-based diet, and I gave up alcohol about 3 years ago. So that's me. And so what I'd like to do now is to talk about meditation and mediation, and in particular, start by creating a level playing field in terms of knowledge. And so I'm assuming that some of you are mediators or understand mediation and some of you don't, and that some of you are meditators and understand meditation and some of you don't. So this is really to get you all on the same page. So briefly, starting with mediation. Mediation is about helping disputants to find peace or resolution. That's why we call ourselves the New York Peace Institute. The word mediation itself comes from the Latin mediators, which means getting in the middle. And that is a mediator, steps in between disputants and using specialized communication, negotiation skills, helps disputants to find peace or resolution. It's not the mediator's job to find a resolution or agreement for the parties or to force a resolution. Rather, the mediator creates a safe space and helps the parties to find their own resolution, should that be possible. This is a fundamental principle of mediation known as self-determination. That is, agreements or resolutions that are defined by the disputants are much more likely to stick than agreements imposed or defined by a third party, such as a mediator. With respect to mindfulness, a definition of mindfulness I like to use is purposeful awareness in the present moment without judgment. The definition was developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's an American professor emeritus of medicine and the creator of the Stress Reduction Clinic and the Center for Mindfulness in Medicine, Healthcare, and Society at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. Some would call him the godfather of mindfulness practice in the West. And the word meditation, even though it sounds very similar to mediation, comes from the Latin meditare, which means contemplate. Right? Meditation, which is a mindfulness practice, can help meditators to find greater inner peace. And this inner peace can and often will project out into their life, such that they either find they're less likely involved in intractable disputes or maybe better placed through greater awareness of their thoughts, feelings, and the impact of those thoughts and feelings on themselves or others, to see their own contribution to the disputes they find themselves in, and possibly see more routes to resolution found primarily in taking personal responsibility for their own experience. That is, accepting that is what we think about a person or a set of facts or events that is meaningfully contributed to and define the conflicts we find ourselves in. And so stepping back and looking more closely at oneself, one's thoughts and feelings can help lead one out of internal conflict into internal balance. And sometimes that will help resolve external conflicts which reflect those inner conflicts. There's a thought in esoteric teaching that what is within is without, or what is above is below. This means that your external life experience reflects your inner life experience. So if you're, for example, happy, then you're more likely to experience happiness in your relationships and other life circumstances, and vice versa if you're unhappy. So since I've been meditating, frustratingly, it's become much harder for me to blame and point fingers at others for my experience of them. I'm always and invariably at the center of every dispute, relationship breakdown I experience. I don't judge myself for that because it's what it is to be human. I'm much less likely to judge others for their upsets because they're doing what I've done for much of my life, which is sort of unconsciously navigating their lives or investing in thoughts and ideas that they think are true and worth investing in, and maybe they're not. So knowing it's me at the center of all of my disputes is incredibly empowering. So as a mindfulness practitioner, I start to understand that disputes start internally and reflect our thoughts about the world and people, our likes and dislikes, unconscious beliefs about others, ourselves, and the world, at some extent, have very little to do with the events or people we're in dispute with. This can really help me as a mediator to empathize with disputants and to support disputants without judging them or picking sides. Disputes are normal and natural. We can get out of hand, and that's where the New York Peace Institute and its team of mediators can step in. Likewise, our thoughts can get out of hand, and that's when meditation can step in and help address those troublesome thoughts. So meditation can help mediators to understand the nature of disputes, where they come from, how we become lost in disputes, unable to find a way out, and as I discuss later, to help disputants to find resolution. So what I'd like to do now is look at the parallels between meditation and mediation in more depth. And one fundamental introductory thought I'd like to share with you is that in my view, meditation and mediation are very, very similar processes. That is, meditation is primarily an internal process that reduces stress in the system, creating greater internal balance and peace, capable of resonating out into the world of the meditator, while the other, mediation, is a combination of internal and external processes designed to reduce stress between disputants and creating space for peace and resolution that ultimately contributes to more balance between disputants and hopefully within each disputant themselves once the resolution to the dispute has been found. And I'd like to illustrate my ideas going forward by looking at the definition of meditation that I mentioned earlier, courtesy of Jon Kabat-Zinn, and then compare the elements of that definition to fundamental principles, values, and aspects of mediation. So what I'll start with, if it's okay, is with the idea of purposeful awareness, which is the first part of Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition. Purposeful awareness means consciously experiencing one's thoughts, feelings, and sensations in the present moment. That is, from the present moment, becoming a more conscious observer of one's thoughts and feelings. Typically, we navigate our lives paying little conscious attention to what's going on inside of us, when we start to become aware of a thought or a feeling, but push them away because it's inconvenient, or possibly says something about us that we don't like, or just doesn't feel good. We're often just too busy and we don't appreciate how important it is to pay attention to our thoughts and feelings. Studies suggest that 95% of our day, that's 95% of our day, is driven by unconscious processes and thoughts. If we're not paying conscious attention to those unconscious thoughts, then we're not paying attention to much of what drives us. This can mean we find ourselves in cycles that we can't explain and can't get out of, such as poor relationship cycles, poor financial cycles, and poor health cycles. And trust me, I found myself in all of those, right? Meditation invites us to become more purposefully aware of our thoughts and the impact they may have on us and others, and this empowers us to make more conscious choices. Mediation is in many respects very similar. In a mediation, the disputants are invited to express their stories into a neutral and safe space. Neutrality and safety, are core principles in the mediation process. The mediator has no desire to favor one party over the other. In that space, disputants start to hear themselves and each other with a different kind of listening and through a different kind of listening, a more purposeful listening, a listening that is committed to supporting the disputants to find peace or resolution. The purposeful awareness of the mediators is therefore critical in supporting the disputants in finding peace and resolution. And likewise, disputants that listen to each other, open to the possibility of finding peace in front of a neutral mediator, are far more likely to listen to each other more purposefully, as opposed to burdened with the full weight of their thoughts about the dispute, and far more likely to find resolution. Disputants who choose mediation are also more likely to find resolution because to some extent, they're prepared to look at the dispute through a different lens, a more purposeful lens, a lens focused on peace and resolution. And so both the mediator and the disputants are more purposefully aware, and one might say closer to the possibility of peace. And I'd like to give an example of an imaginary case involving two disputing neighbors. So one might say, one of the neighbors might say, he's an idiot. Anyone who knows him knows that he's made my life a misery. A friend might say to this disputant if asked, I agree, poor you. I don't know how you've been able to live next door to that fool for so long. The friend is therefore supporting the judgments of the disputant and so reinforce them. The friend isn't neutral or non-judgmental. I might find it hard to be those things due to loyalty or history. With that kind of listening, you can see how the dispute might feel fully justified in being in dispute and feeling right about their position. There's no purposeful awareness focused on peace in that scenario. On the other hand, a mediator might say, so living next to him has made you miserable. Tell me a little about that. The mediator is not addressing the judgments of the disputant, but rather asking the disputant to discuss how the neighbor has made him feel. Mediator isn't judging the disputant's perspective and is not denying the disputant's experience. This is very affirming. So the disputant will feel listened to and not judged. The neighbor will now hear from his adversary about what he's been doing that has made his adversary miserable in a space that's safe in front of an expert mediator whose sole purpose it is to support the disputants in finding peace and resolution. So brings that purposeful awareness to the mediation. This creates an opening to redirect the conversation away from judgments, rights and wrongs, and towards experience and fact. The mediator hasn't judged the disputant, hasn't picked sides. By his purposeful awareness, was able to quickly discern an opportunity to move the discussion further towards resolution. In a meditation, one observes one's thoughts purposefully, and in the mediation, the mediator is a purposeful observer of the facts of the dispute between the parties. The mediator's purpose is to facilitate a resolution between the disputants. And so his awareness is attuned to the opportunity and possibility of peace and resolution in the stories of the disputants. In a meditation, the purpose is to observe one's thoughts and feelings from a present place and to become more familiar with them without engaging with them or judging them, without taking sides, that is, without concluding that one's thoughts are either good, bad, or neutral. They're simply thoughts. In a meditation, focusing one's thoughts on, say, the breath and then simply observing one's thoughts helps to bring the meditator into a present moment state and so create space in the mind within which insights and epiphanies can arise. And insights and epiphanies are relatively common occurrences in a mediation. And by insights and epiphanies, I mean sort of inspired original thoughts about an existing state of affairs, sort of insights that you may not have even considered before, right? One, in effect, in a meditation, can step out of one's normal perspective and look in on oneself as if looking on in a stranger. Being an impartial, non-judgmental observer of the stories of the disputants can create space within which the disputants themselves experience insights and epiphanal moments where resolution and peace becomes possible. And I'd like to provide another example of this. So here's another sort of case where you have two siblings fighting with each other. And one says, I hate him. He hit me hard and broke my arm. He's always angry and it's ended his marriage. He can't hold down a job and everyone hates him. The mediator might say, so he's always angry. It's ended his marriage. He can't hold down a job and everyone hates him. How does that make you feel? It's a very open question. The sibling says, although he won't appreciate this, I'm worried about him. He's a danger to himself and to others. So the mediator might say, so you're worried about him? Have you told him that you're worried? And the sibling says, of course I'm worried about him. He's my brother. And no, I haven't told him. This exchange opens the door to a new perspective. This is my sibling, not some angry stranger. I'm worried about him and his anger is taking a toll on him in his life. The other sibling now is starting to hear a different perspective on the situation. And in that space, insights and epiphanies are possible. For example, man, I really hurt my sister. My sister is worried about me. I thought she hated me. I've hurt my sister and others. I'm hurting myself. Within this space, there's incredible opportunity for healing and resolution. So purposeful awareness expressed in a mediation, in the listening of the mediator, enables the mediator to quickly identify opportunities within the stories of the disputants to move beyond the dispute, thus creating a space in which peace and resolution are more likely to be achieved. Now I'd like to move on, if it's okay, to the second element in the definition from John Kabat-Zinn, that is in the present moment. So purposeful awareness in the present moment. So I'll start by saying we're always physically in the present, but our thoughts take us into the past and the future. We breathe now, and so our breath exists in the present moment, but our thoughts and so our experiences don't. We typically live in our minds and somewhere between the past and the future. Meditation is about slowing down, becoming more aware of your surroundings, your thoughts, and the feelings they generate without judging those thoughts or feelings. While meditating, one doesn't try to clear one's mind or thoughts, but rather changes one's relationship with those thoughts. To become present in the meditation, one typically starts by directing one's focus to a single point, such as one's breath, a mantra, or maybe an object in the room like a candle or vase. By doing this, the thoughts that take one out of the present moment will naturally dissipate. If you try to clear your mind of thoughts, more thoughts arrive. You've probably done that and realized it's impossible to try to clear your mind of thoughts. Trying to clear your mind of thoughts is probably one of the most common reasons why folks give up on meditation. And it's one of the biggest misunderstandings about meditation. That's because trying to clear your mind is almost impossible. And trying in a meditation begets trying. That is, the more you try, the more you need to try. And trying is an anathema to meditation. If during the meditation, thoughts arrive, to remain present, we become observers of our thoughts. For a while, we stop investing in those thoughts or treating them as if they're true or define us or are even our own thoughts, right? We observe our thoughts as if we were observing the thoughts of someone else without engaging with them. As we do this, we start to find ourselves far more present to where we are, because it's our engagement and investment in our thoughts that take us out of the present moment. As we let go of any sense that our thoughts are us or necessarily worthy of investing in, a natural clearing arises. We find ourselves where we are in the present moment. The peace within us into which thoughts arrive begins to become more evident. Our thoughts are no longer ours or us, and so they no longer drive us or distract us. We find ourselves in a place of peace. In the present moment, you're not contemplating future events, you're not concerned about past events, but rather you're present to exactly where you are and what's happening right now. If you engage with your thoughts, you're immediately taken out of the present moment. I read a book recently that provided a great metaphor for this. The author wrote that when Adam in the Garden of Eden ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, God expelled him from the garden. The garden was paradise. The garden was presence. Because knowledge is a product of the mind and its thoughts, then one becomes wrapped up in one's thoughts. And when one becomes wrapped up in one's thoughts, one inevitably leaves paradise or otherwise leaves the present moment. This is a place of peace and creativity, because your focus is simply on what's happening now, while typically our minds are bogged down with and invested in myriad thoughts, anchored in the past that ended the moment it began, or in an imagined future that may never arrive. Right? The students in a mediation typically are not operating in the present moment. They're angry about things said or done in the past, or worried about the impact on them of things said or done on their future. Disputants have invested significant energy and time in their thoughts, believing them to be true. And those thoughts often, to a large extent, have imprisoned them in a cycle it can feel almost impossible to escape from. Some would say, to a large extent, this is sort of how most of us live much of our lives. Mediation can, in fact, help the students to change their relationship with their thoughts about a person or event, similar in some way to a meditation. A good meditator creates a safe place in which the students can really hear each other, possibly for the first time, and to some extent their focus, change their focus and bring them into the present moment. For example, disputant A argues that disputant B used to be someone they trusted but can't trust anymore. The mediator can recognize to the disputants there was a period when the disputants trusted each other and invite the disputants to speak about that period in their relationship. The mediator isn't ignoring the disputants' comments about the lack of trust, but rather inviting the parties to reflect on what it was about the relationship that worked and created space for trust. Now the parties are not trapped in their thoughts about the dispute, but present to the positive that existed, could still in fact exist in their relationship, should they for a moment focus on something other than the dispute itself. The dispute is a product of their thoughts, and to a large extent, their investment in and belief in those thoughts. This kind of experience for disputants can be powerfully cathartic, right? When they're kind of brought out of the dispute into a more present place. When disputants begin to see an opportunity to find peace and eventually find it, there's a tangible and powerful shift in energy in the room. I felt that shift. And in fact, it was that shift in energy that sort of helped me realize that mediation is not simply some mechanical process. Yes, there are rules, but there are also rules in a meditation practice. So the mediator can bring the participants into the present moment, invite them through the process of mediation to consider letting go of their stories, changing their relationship with their thoughts, and from a more present place to focus rather on elements of a relationship that are more likely to generate a resolution than to focus on past events. So there again is another, from what I see, as a parallel between meditation and mediation. And finally, I'd like to look at the final part of the definition of Kabat-Zinn, which is without judgment. So it's purposeful awareness in the present moment without judgment. So let's start by just saying the mind is a judging machine. It judges some things as good, so we grasp onto them, and others as bad, so we resist them or run away from them. All other things are judged as neutral, and so we pay scant attention to those things. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's absolutely normal, and in fact, your judgments can often be helpful. They can lead you to understand the things that bring you up, give us energy, and fill you with purpose. For example, fighting for the right of animals is a good thing, or protecting the planet is a good thing. These are judgments. They can help us understand what doesn't resonate with us, and so leave us drained, such as, I don't like fighting, I don't like horror movies. Left unattended to, however, the judging mind can be exhausting, controlling, and interfering. When you allow the mind to judge unchecked, you'll often find that your behaviors and feelings may unduly and unconsciously be driven by those judgments. The non-judgment element of Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness means letting go of the automatic judgments that arise in your mind. In practicing non-judgment, there's no longer anything to be done about the present moment, no grasping for more, no resisting what's there, and no ignoring one's life experience. There's a saying I like, that the mind is a great servant and a poor master. The mind becomes the master when its unconscious processes and judgments express themselves in your life unchecked. When one practices non-judgmental behavior, one merely accepts that there's where one is, trusting that we're always where we need to be. In order for mediation to be effective and its outcomes repeatable, the mediator must be neutral. Neutrality for the mediators in the room, as you will know, is a fundamental value or principle in the mediation process. The mediators can't pick sides, apologies, but must operate and be seen to operate by the students as neutral, and in particular, to see as valid and important each party's perspective. In other words, just as non-judgment is required in a meditation, the mediator must be non-judgmental. It's critical in a mediation that the mediator excludes any personal opinions and beliefs from the mediation process, or at least tries his best or her best to do so. The mediator is essentially creating a safe environment in which the students are able to hear themselves unfiltered by the mediator's own perceptions, beliefs, and judgments. In essence, each disputant is given an opportunity to hear themselves and each other in a safe place created by a neutral mediator. Rather than reach conclusions or express opinions in the mediation, the mediator becomes skilled at hearing opportunities for peace and resolution in the stories of the disputants, and through the skillful use of open-ended questioning, is able to bring those opportunities for resolution into the awareness of the disputants. It's actually quite magical when you see it happen. So I'd argue that a mediator's ability to regulate his or her personal perceptions, beliefs, and judgments can be enhanced the more aware of those beliefs, perceptions the mediator is. And that awareness can be enhanced by the meditative process and the mediator's willingness to observe his or her thoughts in a non-judgmental way. From my perspective, the intersection and synergies between mediation and meditation here are quite wonderful. Finding peace, whether in a mediation or meditation, is to a large extent dependent on excluding, or at least, at the very least, regulating one's judgments, personal perspectives, and beliefs. So that's my thoughts on the parallels between meditation and mediation. And what I'd like to do quickly is just leave you with a few takeaways. Firstly, although the word mediation and meditation are differentiated only by the virtue of the word of the letter T in mediation. Right? So T is the only difference in the spelling. The etymology and the fundamental meaning of those words are very different. Notwithstanding the difference, I think you'll have seen that there are incredible parallels between meditation and mediation, and as a consequence, quite material synergies. That is, meditation can support the mediation process, in my personal view, right? For example, through the process of purposeful awareness, meditation can help mediators to become more aware of their thoughts and beliefs, and so help them become more aware during the mediation process of when those thoughts and beliefs start to express themselves. Then, the mediator can regulate those thoughts and beliefs before they negatively impact the mediation process. The mediator's thoughts become servants and cease being masters. Also, meditation can help mediators to be less judgmental, because once you begin to observe your own thoughts from a present place without judgment, you realize quite quickly that there's very little that a mediator is going to hear in a mediation that's not at some point in their own life experience been expressed or thought by them. The judge not lest ye be judged comes to mind. Also, as one becomes less judgmental of oneself through the meditative process, one tends to find that they become less judgmental of others. And this, for a mediator, is a real advantage and a fundamental requirement of the mediation process. Also, a meditation practice can help mediators to be more present and to bring the qualities of presence into the mediation process. Greater presence means that the mediator is better able to discern comments and ideas expressed by disputants to present opportunities for resolution and peace. This is because when in a present place, one's mind is less bogged down in myriad thoughts that can obscure one's awareness. When one is in the zone in a mediation, that is when one is present in a mediation, the process can be like magic, a bit like when footballers are in the zone and score incredible goals. So the creativity of the mediator is enhanced also, and with that creativity, so the opportunities for peace and resolution. And because I think it's been shown that meditation does actually increase your creativity, because you create space in the mind for the creative mind to find its way. Additionally, when disputants speak into a space that's safe and neutral, to a mediator that is present to him or herself and to the disputants, I believe that disputants hear themselves differently and more purposefully, right? Presence can feel tangible and create an atmosphere of peace and calm, and one might say even love. And in such a space, my sense is that the disputants are more likely to feel and see opportunity for resolution. Also, meditation can significantly affect hormones and neurotransmitters in the body. For example, meditation has been shown to reduce the production of stress hormones, cortisol, and adrenaline, and promotes the production of dopamine, serotonin, and melatonin, all of which can contribute to a greater sense of calm and well-being. Meditation can therefore help mediators to enter a mediation process with less stress, which helps to bring a sense of calm and purpose to the mediation. This is particularly important as meditations can be very stressful experiences. Introducing a stress mediator into a dispute resolution can be a recipe for disaster. Reduced stress can help the mediator create a safe space within which peace is more likely to be found, and can help the mediator to be less reactive and more responsive to the disputant's actions, words, and behaviors. Creating a safe space is a fundamental principle of mediation. Also, and finally, it can be tempting in a mediation to try to define a resolution for disputants, especially if the mediation becomes stressful and protracted. If one has a developed meditation practice, one realizes that insights and epiphanies, that is, new and original perspectives on a given state of affairs, are more likely to arise if one lets go of a desire to know or define an outcome, and instead creates space for the outcome to reveal itself. That creates the conditions to enable the disputants to find their own resolution. The meditative process can therefore help mediators to understand more fundamentally the value of allowing a space to exist, devoid of their own judgments and opinions, for the self-determination of the disputes to be expressed. Right? Self-determination, as we said earlier, is a fundamental principle of mediation. And I did say finally that I've got one last thought, which is a bit of a novel one, but I'd like to leave it with you anyway. So there's a lot of science out there, and it's very credible science, and a number of experiments that appear to confirm that when people come together with a collective intention focused on the creation of peace, particularly if the intention is to create peace in a specific locality, there is a tangible shift in the experience and expression of peace as defined by the experiment in that locality, right? Experiments have been conducted with groups of transcendental meditators focusing on peace in Beirut, Jerusalem, parts of the US and beyond. And there was a consistent measured material reduction in the incidence of violence, injury, and fighting in those localities. With this in mind, it may well be the case that in addition to the impact of mediation on the peace quota in New York, the very existence of the New York Peace Institute and its commitment expressed through its board, its employees, and its more than 400 voluntary mediators may without a single mediation contribute to the greater sense of peace in New York City. Just some food for thought. So those are my thoughts. Hope you found them entertaining or interesting, and I'd be happy to take questions or any feedback.
Yeah, so thank you. If anybody has any questions, feel free to share those, and Simon will answer them before moving on. I'll give a few minutes.
Thank you, Ayana.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And thank you, Simon. Not for me.
Dali, are you seeing any questions popping up?
I'm not seeing any questions popping up right now.
Okay.
We can also, you have a question, Karen, go ahead. Yeah, unfortunately, you have to write the question in the chat because it's a panel, so I can't see people or hear them. Perfect, thank you. Simon, we have a question that says, would you provide an example of when you have used or seen used meditation during a mediation?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen, and I'm not aware that it would be permitted, in fact, to use meditation within a mediation. In fact, probably wouldn't be. But the skills, as I say, that you are able to hone as a meditator with a meditation practice can be brought to bear. So that purposeful awareness is something, for example, that you become much better at the more you meditate in meditation practice, right? You tend to be more present when you meditate in terms of if you have a developed meditation practice. One of the key elements of my meditation practice and the meditation practice of most people I know is non-judgment, right? Starting with yourself, because you tend to look at your own thoughts and say, oh my God, look at these thoughts I'm having. They reflect me, they represent me, and I don't like them. But if you do that, you tend not to be honest with yourself about what you're thinking. And also you're treating those thoughts as if they define you, and they're even your thoughts, right? They're actually a product of a lifetime of myriad inputs of data and information that just keeps bringing themselves up. And if you don't believe me, spend 30 minutes in a room on your own, just listening to your thoughts and writing them down, and you'll find that the strangest things pop up. So I don't think you can meditate in a mediation. You can meditate before going into a mediation. That might be helpful, right? If you have a meditation practice, I think you just develop a certain skills that might be helpful in a mediation context.
Okay, Simon, I think somebody else asked a question that was similar, but I'll ask it in case you wanted to add anything else. It said, have you incorporated mindfulness techniques during a mediation when you sense parties emotionally charged?
It'd be great to, we don't have anyone from New York Peace Institute because I haven't run many mediations, but certainly what I can say is when in my own personal life, I am in the presence of dispute, right? I am much less reactive than I used to be, right? I used to feed straight into the anger and the frustrations and the irritations. Or if there's criticism, I might take it very personally. But now, recognizing that actually, my sense of what's going on in the room, and would be the case also in a mediation, is that the anger and frustration, even if it's directed at me, isn't about me, right? Okay, and so I don't take it as personally, so I'm less likely to be reactive. I'm more likely to be responsive to angry words or frustrations being expressed in a mediation or in any context, at me or otherwise.
Thank you. I'm going to bounce around the questions a little bit. One more question. How do you balance thinking in your meditation practice versus feeling in your meditation practice? And the same goes for in the mediation room.
Well, I'll talk about meditation. As I say, the trick in a meditation is to start thinking, start observing your thoughts, or being aware of them, right? So you observe your thoughts, you don't sort of invest in them. So you see them come up and you just observe them, right? You don't think they're good, you don't consider them bad, you just observe them. When you observe them, your relationship with them totally changes, right? They don't generate the same feelings that might otherwise, because you're observing them and not investing or engaging in them, right? So the meditative process treats thoughts almost as if they're not yours, right? And invites you not to judge them. And it's often our judgments of these thoughts, judgments of other people's words or actions, that create the emotions that start to generate stress and other sort of physical reactions and mental reactions that could sometimes get in the way of resolving something, right? And so the trick, as I say, and the process in meditation really is about finding a way to relate to your thoughts as if they're not you, as if they're not coming from you, they don't define you, and there's nothing in those thoughts necessarily, right, for you. Just it's worthwhile just being curious and observing them. And what's really interesting about when you do that is that quite naturally, even though you're not engaging with the thoughts, you have this sort of rising of insights and epiphanies that start to sort of redefine things for you in a way that you never thought about them before. And so those epiphanies and insights are not just useful within the context of meditation, but they can also be really helpful to you because you can integrate those insights into the way you operate in the world, which I've done many, many times. And those insights, particularly around dispute and upsets, can be helpful in a mediation.
Great. Thank you, Simon. And I'm being mindful of time. I know that you need to, do you want to take one more and then wrap up, or how do you feel?
Maybe we've got sort of 8 minutes. So I'd like to, if it's okay, and sorry if I haven't got everyone's answers, get into the meditation so that we can give people sort of a real world sort of experience around meditation and what it feels like and how it might be helpful to them. And what I'm going to do
Sounds
is
good.
meditate on peace, if that's okay. So thanks for your question, everyone. And so now let's move into the meditation. And if you do meditate, I'd invite you to set aside your expectations for this particular meditation. Right? This form of meditation may or may not be familiar to you. So try not to judge it and just try to be open to it. And if you haven't meditated, I'll sort of guide you through. So I'd say let go of any tensions, concerns, or frustrations that you now have. So take a deep breath. And with that outward breath, just let go of whatever you brought into the meeting, whatever you might be feeling right now. And this is a guided meditation, which means I'll be speaking throughout the meditation and guiding it. So I invite you to simply allow my words to come into your awareness, and don't think about my words or grasp onto them as such. Simply allow yourself to be present to the words, and without judging them, just observe your reactions to them. So you're not going to grab onto them or think too much about them. I just invite you to allow them into your awareness and just see how they settle in you. And so what I'd like you to do is, if you're sitting in a chair, just sit up straight in a chair, feet firmly on the ground. If you're not in a chair, you can't do that. Just try to get into a comfortable place. Again, if you're trust your hands gently resting on your knees. Your head should be balanced on the top of your spine. If you imagine a piece of string pulling up the back of your head, try to lean slightly forward. Try not to lean against the back of your chair. Again, if that's not possible, that's absolutely fine. There's no absolute right or wrong here. But we tend to slouch a lot during the course of the day, and it's good to sort of sit up. It helps the energy to move up and down the body. It helps in the breathing as well. We want to be, relaxed and alert, right? So if after I've asked you to get into that position, you're feeling uncomfortable, just shift around and get into a position where you feel more comfortable. And there's no absolute right or wrong here. So now what I do is invite you to close your eyes. And as you do, I invite you to become aware of the space around you. Any sounds, any smells, the temperature in the room. Is it warm or is it cold? Just become aware of the space around you. Any electrical sounds, the sound of a clock ticking. Meditation is about becoming more aware of your surroundings, more aware of your thoughts and feelings. Any smells in the room, food, cleaning products, plants. When you smell in the room right now, what are you aware of in terms of the room? What about the space around you? Can you be aware of the space? The space looks empty, but it's actually full of information, atoms and ions and electrical waves. We don't pay much attention to the space. We tend to pay attention to the things in the space, but the things in the space only exist because of the space around them. So can you be aware of the space that defines you? Now I'd invite you to become aware of how you're feeling physically. How do you feel physically right now in this present moment? What are you feeling in your body? Any tightness, any pain or heat, any tension? If you're feeling any tension, can you release it now? Just let it go. Surrender to this present moment. Maybe in your neck, your arms, your face. We hold a lot of tension in our face. Are your lips pursed? Is your brow furrowed? Are your nostrils flared? If you let go of that tension, you look 10 years younger. So what are you feeling in your body right now? The body is constantly speaking to you, trying to let you know how it's doing and how you're doing. It's like your best friend. And sometimes we ignore the body in the same way that we may ignore a best friend. So what's your body telling you right now? Can you be better at listening to the messages that come from the body? Now I'd invite you to become aware of your breath. the inhale and the exhale, the in and the out. Don't change your breath, just become aware of it. Become aware of the fact that you may not have even been breathing, which is very, very common. We don't breathe as much as we could. Stress can cause that. Sometimes we don't breathe because it helps us to repress feelings, which is something we're very good at. We need to breathe to let those feelings out, let them pass through us. And if thoughts arrive, don't change them, don't invest in them, just observe them. Be the observer. Just observe your thoughts. What's going on in those thoughts? Don't judge them, just observe them. Observe them as if they belong to someone else, as if they weren't even your thoughts. What are your thoughts all about? And when you're ready, gently circle back to your breath, the in and the out, the inhale and the exhale. Feel the air travel through the nose or mouth, down the windpipe. Can you feel your lungs expanding? The body moving around your lungs to accommodate the air. Just be aware of the breath. And if thoughts arrive, don't change them. Just try not to engage with them. Observe them as if you were observing someone else's conversation. Then they'll drift into your mind like clouds, and then drift out again without touching you. And when you're ready, gently circle back to your breath. You breathe in the present moment, not in the past or the future. Right now, when you bring your awareness to your breath, you bring awareness to the present moment, a place of calm, a place of peace, creativity, and insight. The present is where magic happens, where footballers score impossible goals. Usually musicians play impossible scales, and writers write impossible stories. Now I leave you for about 45 seconds or so in that cycle: breath, awareness, inhale, exhale, thoughts, observe, and then back to breath. And then I'll return to finish the meditation. So stay relaxed, eyes closed. Today we're in search of peace. So important in the midst of challenging times. We've had to navigate a difficult election period, geopolitical tensions, pandemic, health fears and challenges, travel restrictions, employment challenges. This is a unique time in our history on this planet. A time when finding peace is so important. Sometimes peace can only appear when we become aware of and even embrace the noise. And there's a lot of noise in the world at the moment. Noise that can sometimes be exhausting and deafening. But peace is always present and always available to us. Peace gives life to the noise. It really does. It gives life to the noise. The noise can only exist because of the peace that surrounds it. Just as we can only exist because of the space that surrounds us, and that space itself is peaceful. Noise enters into that peace, which is why we can hear it. If there was noise everywhere, we couldn't hear noise. Peace is always present. Peace exists within you at all times. It's from that peace that you've been observing your thoughts today. It's into peace that your insights and epiphanies arise, and from where they arise. So I'd invite you now to feel the peace that you are. Just feel it in the body. Feel it around you. Become aware of the peace into which your thoughts arrive like clouds just drifting across the sky without touching it. Feel the calm within you. Feel the calm in every cell and every atom of your body. Feel peace resonate within you. Become aware of the silence between each thought. The silence that exists between each word I speak and reappears at the end of each word and before the next is spoken. Know that you always have access to that peace because you are the peace within which all things arise. And so have access to that peace whenever you choose. Just become aware of the present moment. That moment between past resentments and future fears. That place within which each inhale and exhale exists and occurs. A place where all things are possible. And from within which the most powerful creative actions emanate. Where words move mountains and hearts, and love conquers all. So now I'll just suggest that to finish up, we invite you to take a couple of deep breaths with me, and when you exhale, just exhale all tensions, frustrations, and irritations from today, the weekend, or before out. So just follow me, take a deep breath. 3, 2, 1, and exhale all that frustrating out. If you want to, exhale it with a sigh. Take another deep breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale all that frustration, those disappointments, those angers out. And one last deep breath. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. So thank you all for joining me today. You can start to rouse yourselves, open your eyes, stretch a little if you want to. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and that you enjoyed this experience with us. And could I just say finally that this session was not designed and was not to encourage you to spend money. We didn't charge for it. The New York Peace Institute is in the middle of its 10th anniversary, is in the process of raising funds to enable it to spread more peace and to do more of the good work that it does. And so if you're minded, any amount at any point, feel free to visit our website and donate something. So thank you again for your attention and for your time, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for joining everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end it. Bye.
Bye-bye all. Thank you.